저기 상기 규기 안고 다고 송 톡디게 차상 견 탐제나 자와 안에 견 탐제나 자와 지레스 당아 저기 안에 류가 이숨디 안 견나 메자와 견나 제바 지레스 어두스제 다데네 자다 아 저기 가르삼당 거라서네 당아 저기 안에 류디야 견 탐제다 자제 상기 구송 투숨 나신지가 톱투그리베선 톱투그리에스 근데 간에서 토그리람나 안 취해서 뭐 냠수 렘바래 되네 안에 토그리에제 되네 자당 아주 안다 취해 냠수 간에서 렘고그리람나 나보 안에 가서 그래 개회신인 제그 취해 땡해 람든지게 개회신이지 때 안디잘이야 안지가 지금 나도 듬바 가르고 그러시네 당이 류디 꽤나 제발해셔 제자디 대단 자제 모반의 상기 구송 투수는 견 탐지단 제비 상기 고환 토고도 선비게 되니 듬바시게 되네 듬바게네 미디 토바지게 선비 듬바게네 되네 개외신 된제 개외신 되잖아 근데 최슈의 그 전주의 된배 무투제 가신 안에 저요거네 안에 어두스 냠네 제고레스 안 냠네 제도 제외나 하는 아주게 가소리 상기 네 구송 투순 견 탐제들이 상교고 투구리에서 어두시네 네 니마 조조 상기 탐제 안 되네시네 어두시네 상교고 도바래 제자당 안 줘야 되네 시고리에서 가산다 돌기나 아주 디고를 되네 쉬버래.
Good morning. Yesterday we started to look at our text, the Ornament of Dharma. And what we looked at in brief yesterday is that when we make a comparison between our current situation and that of a Buddha, we see that it is vastly different. The three bodies of a Buddha are flawless, perfected, whereas our body, and we can infer our speech and mind too, is pervaded by faults. And this we need to reflect on to come to see how it is actually the case, and thereafter also recognize that our current state can be transformed. We can transform our current state into that of a perfected being, into that of a Buddha. And how to do so is through cultivating the complete and unmistaken path in the particular or laid out sequence of trainings, of which the very first is relying on an authentic spiritual teacher. And the purpose of what we looked at yesterday was to develop our understanding of our current situation, as well as to recognize what is possible, and then thirdly, that we have the potential to achieve a radically transformed state. And through recognizing that, the purpose then of what we looked at yesterday is revealed, which is to generate an enthusiasm, a joy within us to apply ourselves to transforming our minds. And this sequence of training, this is something we all need to engage in, because this is how all the conquerors, all the Buddhas trained, and all the bodhisattvas in the world are training. And we are not different from them. We need to engage in the same series of trainings to produce the exact same perfected result.
난 데니마 난 데니슈에 난 저기 제 최인 없는 제발라 안 최딩해 기회신인데 안에 제 첨부 임바데 안에 가사 슈바나신 디리아 데니마 도스주에레 당보.
Continuing with the text, the next verse follows from the verse we concluded with last night, looking at the importance of relying on a spiritual teacher so that we can rapidly transform our mind. The fourth verse, all prosperity and well-being of this and future lives depends solely upon the excellent Holy Lama. As there is purpose in offering your life and virtue, you certainly should offer transitory material wares.
다디네 세디치 레소 탐지 구인시도 당한저 세텔이야 안에 지게 디기다 안 세디레 셈 기우다 류대고 영향이 안 세디기 안에 직 디영향이 규게 튕긴디게 해야 돼 세디리야 소자 단 치마라도 당한저 다 세디다 개와 치마이네야 다 지게 된 상보토야 다 된텔이야 안에 지게 류대와 셈기와 안에 지게 류심 디기 영향이 안디 디소 영향이 규 레소 레 규약보디게 참 탐제소다 세디시 레소 탐지 구윤시드.
Looking at the first line, or prosperity of well-being of this and future lives. So this refers to being this life, both the mental happiness that we experience, as well as all the physical comforts that we have. And then in terms of future lives, this refers to the attainment of good rebirths, as well as having favorable circumstances to enable our ongoing spiritual development, our ongoing development of deep inner peace.
데니게 단센 레소디네 차상다 가르리데네 연구에서네 제라마 코나라레베 세데다 제라마 소솔야 남든 최게 남든 제게 라마 코나라레 바레스.
And the attainment of all these of prosperity and well-being of this and future lives depends on relying on our spiritual teacher, on the Holy Lama.
그래서 난 저기 삼론하라 아주 지진비기 지당 아주 최고 기시마 지진비도 다나라야 삼론하라 가려운 것에는 이게와 치마 삼단거 말하다 당 아주 세디기 되기 주야 짱짱 삼단거로 받아 지산 니마도 개와 치마기 되기다 몽반 탈바다 탐지킨 비고 마세디 삼단거 말 세디기 되기 짱짱 주야 삼단거 당 아주 세디기 되기 주야 될이야 간스 두구래 삼나 아주 삼나 나가서 튕긴 야고지 뺀줄 야고 튕긴 야고 주에나 세디기 되기 차상 두구래 삼병 아주 삼나라 디어리다 제가 디어바 장한주 차상지 딱 그디 있네 아주 기에네다야 로 고로롭종으로 살비 제일이야 그러니까 기에 맛이 봐도 아주 튕긴 주에 짱야 내가 지고로 와다 튕긴 주에 짱야 내가 지고로 그래서 튕긴의 야고 주서나 다 아주 되게 차상디 용그래 삼비 다 디삼로도 아주 슉슉 슉슉 버려.
The common way of thinking in the world is that there is no thought to future lives, let alone the attainment of, or the final attainment of liberation or enlightenment. One's focus of almost everyone in our world is solely on attaining the comforts of this life, both mental happiness, but certainly a material comfort. And the belief is, the view is, that by having a sufficient or even an abundance of material comforts, this will be a good life. Hence, people strive in their both their physical activities, but certainly in what dominates their mind, in achieving and experiencing material comforts and transitory states of mental enjoyment and pleasure.
제가 대니기 삼로디기 돈에 치 튕긴 주야리야. 다치 튕긴 주도 다디 대한까지 라나 오다디기 디그리에 다딜레 마 고야 말세비기 촉셰기네요 마다까지 라나 고라까지 라나 고고 디니자 첼을 하베기 이제 내가 제도 코르육리 뇌지네 아는 아주 디기 영야 잡라 내지게 코르육디게 찰라 친제 안디기 안도네 아주 강하면 못 되고 봐 안디 마셰 디기 두비에게 셴기 뇌바로 주변에 디파 매바 수에지 아주 디기 두비에 선비기 디 매바 수에게 안 탑람들이야 저 고춘 먹고 수에지 고춘 배제 따제 안에디 안지샤래 뇌세치야 돼 연구로 봐 도스네 연구할 때 당아도 도스 심주 제바이나 대내기 튕긴 짜냐 야고 주어디기 안 세디기 디기 야고 용토도 해서네 다 땡땡 두고 연구 말해.
We think of the way people relate to, in particular, material possessions, always desiring more. And when we achieve something that we do desire, perhaps longed for, very quickly we want something better. And this is continuous, both with the superficial, but also with the greater things, the more things of greater value in our lives. We are never satisfied. We always want more. And when we look around us, we don't find that people ever reach a point of sufficiency, of where enough is enough. Always desiring more. In this direction and that direction and back to the former direction, always wanting more. That desiring mind is not a mind at peace or at ease. That is a mind that is discontented, dissatisfied. Such a mind is very far from being spacious and open and accepting and calm. Moreover, from never being satisfied and desiring more, all one's plans and schemes are laid out, going to work, all the various activities one engages in for enjoyment, so as to try and gain ever more experiences of transitory pleasure. And then accompanying this, all this activity, we all too easily justify what from someone else's perspective would be unethical behavior, taking advantage of others, twisting the truth. And in this way, we actually add to the unhappiness of others directly. So this entire sequence comes from a lack of contentment, never being satisfied, always wanting more. And the problem with this approach is one can never achieve satisfaction. One can never achieve a state of having enough, and therefore one's mind will never be at peace. Always there'll be an underlying feeling of discontent, of something missing, because our energies are being applied in an area that can never bring us peace.
지게 아주 디기 약보주 연구도 기디나 디기 템보다 디기 연구도에서 심주 제외나 튕긴가제 야가 지게 예배네 지게 꽃 가서네 아주 파다네 지게 밑배 야고 지게 왕체 요요간 안지디도 안집에 강버 지구에 지시 김도 허라 야고도 삼비게 삼리고 때 이내 셈 나올이야 강아 먹고요와 예비게 가서 빵다로 가셔서네 미가제 계라시도 유추어의 야고라신 송교 망부 고도와 홀 파서 로바 송교 망부 안에 자망아도와 자망아는 소설의 내외기엔 자망아이나 강아망아 여러봐 삼노나는 어데 디기님의 요새베 안에 지금 펜슬레 젠두르 여러봐 젠두르기 삼로 여래 젠두르 삼로 여백이 예대 강알리게 돼 제사 미상 첨부기 부지네 미사 교부고 부구나 규모가 부구나 신진에 치료 참참줘야 라기면도 와 거기서는 숨겹제에 휴지제도 오고도 배나가서 미자 미교로 지네 람가람도 아니되네 제라다 하세요 말 그 강아지 냥아셔라 가요 말와 진짜 미자 전부 제라 셰르가제나 변조 야가요나 델레 숨겹 고고도 안에 가른 아직 지금 망보지 고고다 되네 매나 강아지 차고로 와 진짜 되는서도 강아 첨부 여바디 아주기 튕긴가제 야고로나 디기 마주기 지게 디기 야고지다 한 동아세다 디기 야고도 주투메바데 세부로 차가서 통화야 되게 차고로 와
If you think of perhaps someone either you know or just from who you observe at a distance who seems to have an abundance of material comforts, one will look at their situation with some envy, thinking, wow, what a beautiful home to live in, it's furnished so elegantly, that's really quite wonderful. But what is the mental state of someone living in such a home? The opulence and beauty and abundance of their material conditions It's not necessarily, in fact, it's highly unlikely to be reflected in their mental state. Because with more material wealth comes more responsibility. There's a lot of responsibility to merely safeguard one's material wealth, to make sure it doesn't decline, and to protect property and possessions, especially when one has an abundance. This takes a lot of organizing and mental energy. And moreover, aware of one's social status, and that this is transitory, one's competitiveness will ensure that one is not satisfied with what one has, and even the very wealthy will be wanting to stand out even more amongst their circle of friends. And then another aspect is, especially amongst the very wealthy, there is a constant physical threat to them and their families. Their children do not have the freedom that average kids have to go anywhere. They need to be accompanied by someone to ensure that they are safe. And likewise with famous people, they cannot just go to a coffee shop or a movie. They have their freedom restricted. So when you look at it in a broader context, it's manifestly clear that even those with the most opulent of material conditions are not experiencing lasting happiness. They cannot experience lasting happiness because of how they relate to the material possessions. Ensures that their mind stays disturbed, not at ease, not at peace.
dine inzada 가르sun고 다 데리야 랍장 안줄래 가르sun고라서네 제상 저기 디기티 빼지게 세디기 튕긴 차상 튕긴 냐냐 두바 딘디 줍나 딘디 디기 차상 빼야 부다고 디기 야고 줍투브레서 비 삼로 땅타디 너트리에서 거 제상 세디 튕긴 냐냐 세디기 그냥 자와 튕긴 냐냐 두베게 삼로 디기 저게 가르소리 디기 야고 줍투 말레스 제상 디 너트리에서 제산다 세딜의 디기 거야다 개와치마다 하버 세디세는 안주게다 안주기 추기 통시 세디세의 통노레스 통동시에스 치마스도 배 다른 부레스 제사되는 현상 세디다 치마치네 치마도 쫓아와 차고레스 니나시 니인장 안주게다 세디기 디기 주변다 세디기 치미기 디기 주변기다 탑롬 가르여서는 최념는 제들이 냠는 제들이 셈기 되는 두고래 삼로 통네 제산 삼로 통네 줍제 아니 디두고래 디 삼로 땅하디 간디스탄 고고래서는 아주 랍제게 한 다디 라마텔레는 용고래 제산 되니기 최 아주 삼로 땅한기 규화지 디기 주에 최대당 치마 디기 주에게 삼로 땅한지 간디스탄 그래라나 텔라메기 마칼롭 나제 안라메 최슈 디제네 하고 고래 제자 디네자 세디기 레소 탐지 주베기 안에 끼인디 규긴데 가르티어스 라말레 코나라라레 바레스 라말마도 안에 샨다게 데시 시하요 마레스 울다.
This part of the reflection then is to come to recognize what is quite clear when we see how our life has played out thus far. That lasting happiness cannot be achieved from the various activities we engage in, nor whatever material possessions we acquire. Lasting happiness cannot be achieved in this way. Moreover, we and society and the world in general live under the confusion of the mistaken outlook that by striving in this life's activities and acquiring possessions of this life, a lasting happiness will be achieved. And hence, there's always this yearning for just a little more, then maybe. And yet, it never comes. And disappointment is inevitable. This needs to be recognized. Then the meditation adds to then one needs to add in the meditation that this life we have is very brief. When we look at the expanse of innumerable lifespans that we've had and lie before us, this life is very brief, very brief. And this also helps us to change a perspective from our current mental focus, which is almost solely on this one life, to make our mind broader and open, to see this expanse of time before us, where our mind will continue, just in different bodies. So here, what we are doing in this meditation is challenging what we value and what we prioritize, and trying to transform that by expanding our outlook, by looking with more clarity and realism at what we value and prioritize, and thereby to try and shift that. Because how we will shift our priorities is to value future lives more than this life, because of the great number of future lives that lie before us. And therefore, we'll want to utilize this life well, so as to ensure our future lives go well. And for that, we turn to our Lama for advice and guidance through his teachings to transform our mind.
dunga seya dan digi dupege tablam semi tone duschine nyamlen jede gechim shu chagorwa kasen dunga meba sowa gechim boro digi dupege zo mi zo di ro so asim je tamjigi digi dupege mi zo re 강아 세야데 미유소로와 지산디 예체쇼 디로와 지나다 강아 세야다 디기 두베데 게첨부 시우인장 디 랍켄 겐디 베 게첨부레스 대인자 어느 간조 가르치는 예첨부자 라마디 땡야라 가르치는 게첨부 시우진 땡고 그래스 땡고베 김자 가르치는데 소윤도 진에 최고나 최상신 요위 뭐지고스 제가 내가 맞대야 될이야 소수교 소호롱 아니 부이체 소호롱 배제 땅제 라마야 최제 라마 지가 라마 땡고 그래서 제가 다 소호롱 뒤 파직 배제 땅 소호롱 부이제 되니게 라마 땡고 거는 아주 노르상 생기다 유절라다 되니게 토는 배제 땅제 라마 땡야다 되니게 라마 부야지 인디지 되게 충주로 인지 미지 제고야지 해서 그러다
Through this reflection, then we come to the point of recognizing that it's essential to come to understand clearly the unmistaken method to eliminate problems and attain lasting happiness. Because that actually is the primary motivation of all beings in everything that we do, say, or think, is to eliminate problems so as to experience happiness. And to completely eradicate problems and achieve lasting happiness is possible. But we need to understand that method as well as guidance in how to cultivate it within our own minds. And therefore, a spiritual teacher, a guide, an illuminator of the path that we need to cultivate within us is indispensable. That recognition then brings us to the rest of the verse. As there is purpose in offering your life and virtue, you certainly should offer transitory material wares. Here, the meaning of offering one's life to one's teacher is having come now in this meditation to recognize that how we have lived our life, what we have prioritized and valued, is mistaken. It cannot lead to the result that we desire. Rather, we should be focusing on our future lives. Offering of our life means we offer this life in terms of receiving the guidance of our teacher and following that in order to achieve the goal of lasting, stable happiness. So here, what we are offering is a transformed attitude, a transformed outlook, one where we have maybe you could say, a more mature outlook of what truly is valuable. And then in contrast to that, transitory material wares, these are insignificant. So here we see a complete turning around of what we currently value into developing an outlook focused on the great expanse of time that lies before us, rather than in comparison, the mere moments that remain in this life.
当然是所缘节呢，俺去那么俩去我们那儿上新的那个配节，俺那么点过的这些，那么都是真点节，那么真的去学过来送过了。当然是别路行，当然是别路下边呢，地团呢，俺是谁不着去落了，让车不去用过的。别的别路下边呢，你嘛别的嘛，俺呢也好嘛，去讲俺来都老早啊，这个老早讲俺去讲俺那个了哇。레디 가르치바스네 벤마 레디 로침부 찬 리고 말 로 베제 로 충조로 정아 주주 줍된 접게 되네신데 문고로 와 용도 벤마 디디 갑라 넘주요 말에 못어요 말에 배 사사ርን 보래 아니 바라래 신나 첨부 아니 심chen 젠센다 안 두주다 안직 되네기 배 뇌세 먹고에 되지로 나 아니 배바디게 배 남시 장모사 토복한로 남시 장모 쇼간 되게로 봐. 안에 야가데 남시 차와 쇼시로 봐. 제가 되는 말 로자와 장알리도 소코나다지 콜로에 당지네. 다지 최념네 최 야고 장기 라면 봐 야갈 봐 친제 야갈기 안두신 되게 봐 라면 땡제 디자의 최념네 야고지 새벽에 삼로 군노 된지 키에제 소소가 남가라 신나 아니 신나시 가르치나시 했으면 차서 소수도 뢰다지 되는마 아니 공부하게 용거로 와 공부하여도 다와 망부 고고로 남가래야 아니 디사야디게 차상 소수 잡로는 키네 공부하게는 깔래게 용거로 마도 아니 바라바라 사야 그 녀야다 되는게 순간에 녀네 사셔죠 말와 지상 소수 라 다원이 숨지 남갈바 다숨시 남가 공부하게 용거래 데 링을 사야 나야도 마케 고래 체케 고르와 어두스케는 마 야가나레 산에 아디와 조선 다야다 탑시 직대 되게 차상켄 두스케네 갈레케는 마 용제는 나네 직 사지 차와길 바강아 제상 소소 소 차상 뢰디 소소게 튕겐 가르는 차상 지게 뢰 되네 소어떻게 차상 뢰네 만 최랑 삼다이 두체네 슈가 레제 안 최야고 자다 디베르 되네게 망보 시여래 남가라 시여래 아니 민비게 저게 야가 사회가 튕긴 디기 강한테 내시에 시계 망고 중요로와 제가 내내지 강한 접지 두신의 레제 건축의 최야고 부이다고 야고자 때 야고자와디 당건축의 베기 베이나 수 유르체네 다데 봐도 상계 좀된 디게 송샤바다 아니 지금 루르다 바바 토메라서 바다 로베 아예 되와다 다와 잡발라서 비 송셰비 최사상 보디 차상 갱규의 땡유 차상 보이는 규르제 다데바도 가서 냠는 제 예데바디 베기 로자와 데기기 초서 소속이 아니지 가서 상신다 소 차상 뢰제 최슈와 친제 건축이 디제비게 깨딩기 가서 다 냠는 제 롭장시야 예데바지레 건축이 바 친제된 규르메나 되네 최요말 대사다 그 갱유 땡유기 상여소지 냠는 제데 매바르다
To give an illustration of people who did transform their attitude into one thinking of the great benefit that will come in the future, in lives future to this, and then embarked on or lived their life in a completely transformed manner. We think back to the initial translators who traveled from ancient Tibet to ancient India. So that, back then, was a journey of incredible danger. There was no mode of transport other than walking. And they had to walk through snow mountains, across perilous precipices, with no modern mountaineering gear, with the food that they were carrying, because these were remote, inhospitable areas. Much of the journey, there was the constant danger of wild animals, of predators. And moreover, they were going from the snowlands of Tibet into a country which was unknown. But what was known is it's vastly different. And when they would have heard about the incredible heat of India and other ways that India is so very different from Tibet. So this is a truly daunting journey to partake in. And the reason that they had the conviction to do so was they were looking beyond this life. They understood the benefit that would come, firstly to them as individuals, by making it to India, to learning the Sanskrit language, and thereby being able to study the Buddha Dharma at its source. That would make a transformative impact on their minds in this and future lives. But their motivation was far broader than that. They wanted then also to translate these texts into the Tibetan language. And that process would take many years, and then carry these texts back through that same perilous journey with now a body probably more acclimatized to India, again through those snow mountains, again with wild animals surrounding them, and now almost certainly quite a lot older, probably some decades older than when they made the initial journey, so that they can present the texts to the Tibetan people, and thereby enable not just their generation of Tibetans, but every future generation to gain the benefits of the Dharma. That was the motivation that was needed before they even embarked on the journey. A motivation of, if I die, I die, but I'm going to try, I'm going to do my best, and hopefully I will make it. And one imagines that on their journey, some of their companions did die, but they would have not been overwhelmed by fear. They would have continued along an unknown path and eventually made it to India, persevered in their studies, transformed their own minds, and then endured in translating, and then the homebound journey. It was an incredible task. But from that, for nearly 1,500 years, Tibet had the teachings of the great Indian Pandits as well as Buddha Shakyamuni. We see the Tangyo and Kengyo there. This was largely translated by these original translators and brought to Tibet. All the sutras and tantras from the Buddha, the great commentaries by Nagarjuna, Aryadeva, Chandrakirti, Asanga, Shantideva, and others, that they exist in the Tibetan language is due to their motivation and their acting under that motivation. And all the realized beings that bloomed in Tibet in the following many centuries came about independent on the great kindness of those translators. And that they were able to do that is dependent on their having generated a motivation focused on the long term, on future lives, and valuing the attainment of liberation and enlightenment over mere worldly happiness.
Dina shinda bini jizan losawati ki duschine kale kyaptan ganeshi kale kyapchu chyenyamne cheba di nashin chevena chehur sungurwada jizan dine nashin di nashin pe jizumilare patike chik pe ganesh kale kyapye chik duschine ande lamaya chiki shepchu shuya da lamigi chene shuya duschine cheba di nashin da duschine ane chebana 아니 냠나 야고 용고래 디나지 제고래 세월 당한서 당한서 인데다 데드와 담서를 순셔를 어다디 편이 돼서 야고라고 men서 내가 조금에서 하다 아니 추야고 men도 조금에 최금면서 조금에서 너시 장무도 조금에서 하다 진짜 좋아라 남주요래 아니 이제 전가라에 배 야고를 때 튕게 야고를 때 이내 당한서 춘춘질 아딩아디 제수사 말씀 조금에서는 디 조고 말아 진짜 니네 인자 부이다 보징아 저 대신에 신기문도 돼 대신 가고로 와 이내당은 되었이 아주 장도 여봐대 이내다 야구로 와도 매발 이제 야가로 와다 오네 와 아주 직 롭정라지 장고를 돼 장와대 딱균에 맞아 와래 야가로 와서 something is better than nothing says your
And further famous illustrations that you'll be aware of is that of the great meditator Milarepa. So we know from his biography that he endured incredible hardships for many, many years. But due to the power of his motivation, they were not experienced as hardships in the same way that we certainly would. And therefore, he achieved the outstanding result of enlightenment. So his is the famous illustration, but there are so many others. And in other biographies, one can read inspiring stories of great scholars and meditators. And these are the ones that are known, but there are many, many more. Because in order to achieve the outstanding goals of the Dharma, this transformation of what we value and prioritize is the foundation. And then the doorway is open. So His Holiness is right now teaching in Dharamsala, and there would have been many people thinking, shall I go, shan't I go? And part of their decision making would be, I don't know if I'll get a comfortable hotel. There are many people going. I may get something quite far from the main temple. I may get something where the water I'm told is clean, but it's not, and then I can easily get ill. No, I think the internet is more attractive to me. So here we can see a stark difference in attitude. Stark difference in attitude. So what here I'm of course talking in general because people have a variety of circumstances. But we need to look at the quality of our motivation, particularly what we value and prioritize. But that being said, it's on the internet, and we can, and those who have interest, they can watch in the comfort of their rooms, and therefore something is certainly better than nothing.
디견야 삼다도 비가서 디기 쭉쭉 말해서 쭉쭉 말해서 안에다 안 가르 삼당 거래란나 세딜량어도 디기 주야다 디 전행하는 튕긴 주고고때 디견야 삼마다체 디엔 주빌라 조체와데 가서는 몽바나 안에가도 깨와치마다 탈바다 탐색해 봐야 돼 도선니서 하고 와체 디수 주야기 안에 계획 자와를 배수치 호레스 지난 배주체 고레스 삼로디 디당고레스 나 가상 슈바나시 상기 구송 투숨기 연대선 디나시 토구도 상기고 봐 토구도 세비게 삼로디네 나제 안디 토예기 런다게 자와디 삼당타디 가르가르 예바 계위신인 zel파 추nye 퇴바지 nye 롭정제 디파 곰제 곰고레스지 냠나지 고레스 나 삼로디 당고레스 다동만스 다디링게 직제디기도 나 이뭐 디송고레
To summarize the meaning of this verse is our current focus, really can say our sole focus is on the achievement of mental happiness and material possessions within this one life. We are solely focused on brief, transitory, pleasurable experiences and the accumulation of possessions to try and achieve that. That this sole focus is what we need to address because it cannot lead to what we desire, lasting, stable happiness. Hence, the continuous feeling of discontent, of something being missing. So what we need to change is what we prioritize. We need to reprioritize. Seeing this life more clearly in its truer value, truer perspective, and look to future lives and see them as being supremely valuable. This then has the outcome of us leading to striving to accumulate virtue, to accumulate merit, or positive karma, to ensure that we achieve the lasting state of happiness that we desire. So this meditation is directed to produce The same result as the meditation of yesterday, where one looks accurately at our current state. The illustration was of our body, but also speech and mind. To see that it is flawed, and then compare it to the flawless state of a Buddha, giving rise to the determination to become a Buddha, to achieve a faultless state, and thereby apply oneself with effort and energy. So these are two different meditations which bring about the same outcome, a change in what we value and prioritize, and a deep enthusiasm to transform our minds.
Andini za doshe, adine dane jugi ne jige denigi nyamlen che da dade de tusu midonga legara to di sarchen ane jigi lo jema di wa di ma jiginda sambi sam course wada andine chene jigi ya sambe sambinguro wa jeza dene samdane ane digo mares jeza 다든지 최 다든지 제고고래서 그러다 되니게 계절 줘야 되냐면 제 다든지 제고고래서 그 비김전 디송거다 된마 치 다든지 제고고래서 제 다든지 제고고래서 제자다 제고 비김전 디송거다 된마 체냐 버까위 다줘야 뒤인리 미드 뉴르두직 나를 판제 되면 나도 탈 다지게 인부 렘버 살스
Having come to this point in the meditation, we move to the next verse with the link. The link between the fourth and fifth verse is that we've understood the need to strive to create causes for our future lives, but we are still likely to be influenced by the thought of, I cannot do so right now. My life right now is quite busy. I have many responsibilities which I have to fulfill. I have particular incidents in my life which I have to resolve, and only thereafter I will. And I definitely will, because I see it's important, I definitely will. But not now. And the grave danger of this very common attitude is, as we say, tomorrow never comes. More and more issues of great importance in our life will arise, and we'll keep delaying applying ourselves to the Dharma. So to counteract this way of thinking, to counteract this obstacle, we come to the fifth verse. This precious human life that is astonishingly difficult to achieve also does not last long but rapidly declines. Up to now, this life of yours has passed purposelessly. Please, from now and by all means, achieve the very essence of its potential.
Dinezada diring anzo kar top de yer sang anzo mili diring top de yer es yor. Jezada chenya barke be taju. Anzo ge taju luten de top ka bare de be nya ba ka bare. Di den de ya anejik beje dang je nyamlen je ba ina an che de dang yewa chema da tarba da 탐제 캠비기 an soso rangi dingi dewa top tuyegi nyamlen je tugo den de beje dang je nyamlen je tugo res. An soso gi digi tuba 띵기 대화 탈바 탐제 캠비 고방 주투바 말에 마세 띵디 류된 디기 베제 단데 셴기 동아세다 셴기 셴레 디기 주야다 판도 야침을 제투레스 제상아주 류된디 마한솔 다디디 데니기 류된 캬버제네 마한솔 유도요레스 올다 데니에 바라케베 다저야스 지치니에 까와레데 디링한솔 디 톱도요레스 게치보들 유도요레스 올.
To look very briefly at the first line, this precious human life that is astonishingly difficult to achieve. This precious human life, or more literally, this basis of freedom and opportunities, this is something that is difficult to achieve, but we have done so. And therefore, we have the capacity, because we have achieved this precious human rebirth, to accumulate virtue and thereby transform our mind and ensure that our future lives go well. And moreover, that we spiritually progress rapidly to the attainment of enlightenment itself. And that this process of spiritual development that we have the capacity to do because we have achieved a precious human life means that we can be of great benefit to others, extraordinary benefit to others, both in this life as we transform, and certainly in future lives as we become ever more spiritually developed. Therefore, for the sake of my own happiness as well as to be of real benefit in the lives of others, I need to utilize this precious life that is so difficult to achieve, and I need to utilize it in the best possible way.
데닝이 된 개발자하고 쇼지 톱되어래 생각을 여리래서 제가 데니 여바데 안다 직 템부로 시다변 직 균리고 뒤여베네다 하나 마치바 주와 마침바 균리고 되변 땅에서 로제마 gelidini 냠내시나 지기로 와서 디 뒤여래서는 되뱅해 봐요 말해서 뒤 윤리 미디어 뉴르도식 세대 제가 데니기 류딘디 톱되어럴 때 데니 균리고 쇼 뒤여래서는 되게 말해서 가라서네 델이야 긴도 좀 배는 뇌버치 긴도 고마 매바 차야래야 튀치다 난기 긴 먹고요래서 제가 디네인사 유튜브게 아니 그 지루래 아니 그시 긴 매바 그지 라바나 로잘라스만 되도 말해서 그러거든 디네인사 나주 뒤 윤리 미디어 시디 윤리부 되도 말해 그래서는 치게다 내나세다 되네게 중국 유튜브에 끼인기 토네 아니 걸 매바 차로 그래 디게지 되네게 있는 윤리부들은 로잘라스마도 되도 말 되네서 유치로 그래 되네게 다데디 땡들에 되네 베주다야고 톱되베 디 땡들에 맞아봐 있나 아니 디 지소나 되네게 땡데 개발진 마음보다 토그리 토고 말해서 시에 토고 말해 토발에 마토바디 망아래 진짜 마토바에는 아주게 되네 베주다야 되 냠내제 고급들라고 말해 진짜 고급티 쇼고래스
This opportunity that we have achieved through having a precious human life that is astonishingly difficult to achieve, this is very rare. Most beings do not have such an opportunity. They lack the capacity and they lack the conditions to be able to identify the real situation they find themselves in, as well as their potential. And their situation is vastly different from ours. Whilst being in that situation, is hopeless. Ours is not at all. We have the capacity to recognize our true potential as well as what is holding us back, what is confining us. And therefore, we can utilize this life incredibly well, but this life is finite. Amongst the many delusions that we live under this delusion of there being time before us. When we think about this, none of us can say that with any certainty. None of us know when this life will end. We may have plans for next week, next month, next year, but none of us can say hand on heart that we will be alive then. We can look at balance of probabilities and we can say, I may well make it to 100 years, and that may well be correct on a balance of probabilities. But we cannot say with certainty. And this is due to many reasons. Primary one that we can reflect on is how few causes there are that we can and do accumulate to sustain our life, and how many causes there are that can bring it to an abrupt end. Moreover, even if we do live a long life, maybe even a healthy life, the quality of our existence, of our life, this certainly we reach a certain point, doesn't improve. And this, when we recognize it, reminds us, as we see in the next line, this life does not last long, but rapidly declines. What remains may be incredibly brief, we do not know. It may still be some years, but their quality is declining. This we need to recognize. And through recognizing this, it destroys any sense of procrastination, adds tremendous focus and mental energy. And this is essential for transformation.
지산다 로 베네 균능을 로자스 되베네 지산다 저기 지금 수부디 바 닝바 차도 누슈메바 차로 그래 누슈메바 세데네 셈리아 아니 지게 셈기 수부 누슈메바 차데 셈리아 아니 지게 누슈메바 차도 아니 게 냠네 제투야디 베네 수부 나제 강아 메베네 강고 차네 양 지금 셈다 류다 니게 누슈메바 차도 냠네 야고 제투야디 갈래 가보 샤고로 봐 다디네 균능부 되베나 내 나제게 나지 내바로 차되베네 제투야 가요 말아 디네 자 다당아 저기 디네기 된 개발 류딘 개발지 다당아 저 유에데 바제 디네기 다데 뉴슈 유에데 바 튕긴지네 유에데 갑려야 디네기 단냠래 제화데 계시모레에서 송거
We know from our own physical and mental experience, as well as what we've observed, that the body and the mind declines. This is incontrovertible, and it cannot be stopped. Death will come, and unless it's sudden, it will be preceded by a process of decline. This decline may be aided by illness, but even if one remains healthy, naturally, there's physical and mental, the physical and mental declining. This cannot be stopped. And therefore, when we recognize this, truly recognize this, we'll understand that what we have right now, our physical and mental state, may well be as good as it's going to be. And therefore, I actually cannot delay. I cannot wait any further. Because the decline may well already have started, and it certainly is going to continue. So this we need to recognize well to lead to strength of mind.
난 donda님보들랑 가서 디리시에 되게 가르쳐서네. 제가 세디기 당한 저기 세디 튕긴 줍나 약보 주변에 디기 푸수 소바 용거래 삼제 세디기 튕긴 주에게 자와 짱짱 제 되어 있는 삼로디 노트레스 제자디 지당한 세디 튕긴 주고 오래데 이내야 디짱짱 삼제디 개와 치마다 탈바다 삼제 캠바스 삼마다 바이나 안에디 삼장 지부고 노트레 디기 툭툭 말에 디 삼로디 노트레스 어라트 찍찍거래 다나 디라트제네 안다 가르쳐고래 람네 디노트에는 딱 삼마 가르당 고래세네 세디 튕긴 주고 오래도 조딜라 네 가르삼 개와 치마 안디 띠엔상보 세디 나신 류텐상보 토야다 세치마레 디기 요야 안 탈바다 탐지김 고바 토야 디 토구도 선배 don혈기 둔바데 삼로디 디 토구도 선배 삼로데 야네 양도 삼당 고래스 디 삼단에는 야 개외 신인 땐제 개외전에 최슈션 도시는 소수기 류다 안 롱절야 안 지금 배제 가능성 땅거나 땅제는 도시네 냠는 제고래 해세죠. 삼부디 제고래서 디라르 다디네자 다는 아주 디네 투투그레 베스는 투그레스 가르스네 아주리 튕긴 제고 튕긴 요래스 지상 소소의 삼나려야 냠는 제도기 덤바 don혈기 덤바의 용고래스 지상 달랍한 기회 신인은 요바래스 지상 당 아주 띵기 차네 땡들에 캐버전 땡들이야 땡주기 루틴세 아주 다들 요려리 땡들이야 간스 냠는 집에 냠는 제도 땡 캐버전도 요래스 지상 되네제 아주리 땡 캐버전도 요래 줍투여기 땡 캐버전 요래 될이야 안에 람든 지간 랍켄 기회신이 요래 땅 아주기라 디제기 don혈기 듬바다 소수기 준리 제바이나 되는 줍투그래서 됐은 거 다가제 제자 줍투그래서 다네 두투거나 다 제마디와 진 디기로 알람나 어디 제마디와 진 다들 두즈 민두 삼다네 디지기 말해 그래서 제마디와 그디시에 해봐요 말 와서는 다들 제마지긴선 제 마제바라 시선인데 용라기도 와서 지선 다들이 발삼다 다들이 제고래스 올다 런다다 디리 쇼기 내가 시에 디기 전에 이거 삼다야 디리스.
To summarize then what we looked at this morning, here we are being urged to re-examine what we value, because there is an overemphasis on the achievement of and experience of this life's material comforts and possessions and pleasures. It's not that these have no importance, but our emphasis is completely out of balance. And it is that is preventing us from thinking beyond this life, from having a motivation of our endeavors being to achieve causes that will lead to good future rebirths and spiritual development. So this is the first key point to analyze. And thereafter, we also need to recognize that we have the capacity to achieve good rebirths, liberation from suffering in its entirety, and even enlightenment. Having this capacity, and through changing our emphasis and what we value, we then need to commit to applying ourselves to accumulate the causes that are required for good rebirths and to achieve liberation and enlightenment. And those causes then are first relying on a spiritual teacher, someone who can illuminate the path for us, guide us on that path. And recognizing this great value, we offer our life, our virtue, and even our material wares. Thereafter, we looked at how, because we have this incredible, precious human rebirth, we've met a spiritual teacher, all that we need to develop so as to open the entire Dharma to us is deep and sincere enthusiasm. And an enthusiasm that is free of procrastination. So therefore, the reflections are on both precious human rebirth and the impermanence of this life. To the extent we can develop an enthusiasm free of perseverance, everything is possible to us. And so those then are the meditations we've looked at this morning. So thank you very much. We'll conclude here then for this morning and continue tonight. Thank you.